am Aspie Drummer, and I am here today with Lieutenant Colonel Trevor. How are you?
Good. Semeniuk.
That's right, man. You gotta be, you know. Anyways, Trevor, tell me a little bit about you. Who are you? And you're with the Canadian military, the armed forces.
Yes.
What do you do there?
Full name Lieutenant Colonel Trevor Semeniuk. I'm a signals officer of 22 years. So as a signals officer, I've done various jobs in the technical fields regarding networking and different communications. At my current job, I'm in charge of essentially routing and organizing and ensuring that the administration is in line, in order, and everything happens efficiently. So at the unit, the unit I'm in is Chief of Professional Conduct and Culture, an organization that we're trying to improve the Canadian Forces, make it a better, more more respectful, diverse, inclusive, and just a more welcoming organization for new recruits and existing members. And my specific role there is to help with the policy and the governance files that have to be sent up to accomplish some of the tasks that we're trying to do to make things better, and to create new policies and new guidelines to welcome things like neurodivergent members and members with disabilities, and a lot of excellent changes and great things are happening there, and I'm really happy to be part of that.
So you touched on the inclusiveness. Now, are you yourself are neurodivergent?
Yes.
Yeah. So autism is part of who you are. You are autistic. When did you discover this?
The actual discovery happened while I was listening to a podcast with my wife Evelyn. A lady named I always forget her name, and my wife would correct me, but her last name is Gatsby.
Okay.
And she was an athlete, but she was speaking on this podcast. A lady named Glennon Doyle has a podcast. Okay. So, what is her name again? Anyways, as she was talking about her experience going through life, I thought, I never heard somebody with the exact same experience as me. My experience in life has always been so different from everybody. I've never enjoyed the same things. I've never enjoyed socializing. I've always had these challenges in life. Things that seem so easy for other people and things that other people seem to enjoy, I've never enjoyed. This lady was talking like she was me. And so I said to my wife, I can't believe it. So that's when autism first kind of came on the radar, and then from there I did some more investigation, and through doctors and different assessments and whatnot. Not an official medical diagnosis, but the words were overwhelming evidence to suspect autism. So I went with that.
Yeah.
But I know who I am. I know what I am. I know I have trouble looking people in the eyes. I know I didn't speak until 4 years old. I know I struggled socially my entire life, and I have the core characteristics of autism, and so it doesn't particularly matter what the label is. I just know who I am, and I know what I am.
When you discovered that, and you were told that probably what's going on, how did it? What was going through your mind? How did you feel? Like, what was the process?
Well,
how were you?
It was actually such a relief when I was listening to that podcast. I had never heard somebody that had such a similar brain wiring to me, and I suddenly had a name for something. I suddenly knew what it was, and I knew what I was, and suddenly I knew I was autistic. And from that moment on, I slowly started unmasking, and that was probably 4 years ago now. It was a while ago, but it's been a slow unmask, to slowly kind of just be myself in public and dance in public and kind of sway, and when I get nervous, I do different things. that are socially inappropriate, I suppose. But to me, they are what I need. So I do,
It's
and I don't
normal
care.
for you.
Yeah,
It's just what you need,
yeah.
right?
And so I've gotten used to just people looking at me, and through my life, people have always laughed at me.
Yeah.
Always made fun of me, and I've always just, uh, I don't know. We just get used to it, and so I don't mind if people laugh at me because they've laughed all their life, and so
Yeah.
now I
Yeah.
can just be myself and just feel happy inside myself and not feel like I have to worry about my behavior or be
Yeah.
embarrassed
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
let go of the shame and just be myself and just be happy. And if people enjoy it, that's great. If I put a smile on people's face by dancing in the airport,
Who
um,
cares?
then so be it. I made people happy,
That's
right?
right. And above all, I guess you're making yourself happy, right? You're
Yeah, I'm
being
happy.
you. I can
Mm.
attest to what it's like to, unmask. And now, were there, and during the unmasking, did you ever come to a point where you might have been? I'm going to speak from my experience in asking this question. Is like I remember when I went through a little bit of a depression because there was a part of me that went, man, so many years that I've been masking that I've lost that I can't get back now, and I regret,
Mhm.
uh, not knowing this earlier. Did you
Mhm.
have that feeling?
Yeah, there was a point, the same probably point that you got to, that at first there was relief and I
Yeah.
knew something and I knew what it was, but then suddenly there was a sadness and a regret and all the missed chances that, especially missed chances that parents and teachers could have
Yeah.
caught, and it was really
One hundred
hard for me
percent.
to accept that, like my parents, at 4 or so I still wasn't speaking, so or maybe it's a little earlier. So
Hmm.
my mom brought me to a speech pathologist, but nothing was really followed up from there, right? It
Okay.
was just,
Wow.
and there was just so much more that could have been done that maybe could have helped me through
Hmm.
through my childhood, but it was nobody's fault, and
Yeah.
everybody was doing the best they could at the time with the information
Hmm.
they had, right?
Yeah.
And I've looked back in the history of autism, and I think it was still known as Asperger's until about the 90s. And,
Yeah.
in about the 90s, they started diagnosing adults with autism. It was no longer a childhood disease.
That's
And,
right.
and even in the, 60s, 70s, it was called childhood schizophrenia. So,
That's what
I mean,
exactly.
like it came a long way, but I was born in 1975. That was the point where they were just switching from childhood schizophrenia to realizing that maybe it's childhood autism. But nobody really knew anything beyond the very extreme cases, the
That's true.
severely challenged pe- people. So
I have to say
anyway.
that the newer way of looking at it now, and knowing that there's an actual gene and they trace
Hmm.
down the gene. Even myself, in 2010, my psychiatrist that I was seeing, 'cause I had mental issues because of that not knowing, and
Hmm.
she had directed me towards that,
Hmm.
saying, I'd like to have you tested for this. And my image in my head, thinking in images was, no, I'm not that guy who's walking around and the
Hmm.
gestures and that's
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
me, right? Because that's what was
Yeah.
portrayed back then
Hmm.
as autistic, right?
Hmm.
The extreme, the other
Yeah.
end of the spectrum, not knowing that. Well, a light spectrum's got millions and millions of colors, right? Well, that's why it's called a spectrum.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
so when I was diagnosed, it was like you too. How before you were diagnosed in your line of work, were there anything at your job that really was affecting you and but not other people?
Yeah, so much. The military is great in a lot of ways because it's very structured. There's rules. I love rules. I love,
Yeah.
knowing what to do, when to do. There's a lot of social constructs. When to salute, who to call, what, and it's
So it's
very
a
very
routine
tactile. Yeah,
thing, which is a safety blanket
it
for us. Is
was.
that routine?
That
Okay.
was excellent, but then there was also the complete lack of um, like knowing what's next, right? There's always a saying, prepare for the unprepared or expect the unexpected,
Yeah.
because you never know where you're going to be next. You never know where you're going to move next, and
That would be tough.
it became very very tough, and each move, my mental health declined over time. Um,
Oh yeah.
with each move, the change in routine. I get so set in my routines. Like my morning is I mean, maybe you're the same. Like everything has to happen the way it has to happen. Otherwise, it
Yes.
kind of throws you off. But when you're thrown off so much that you're in a whole new place and a new job and new people and everything, it would take me months and months to really just get comfortable. And then I'd feel great, but then I'd move again. And I never
Yeah.
understood why that was so hard on me. And I thought, well, like, I'm in the military. I'm expected to move. It's just part of the job.
Yeah.
But over time, it just really, really kind of ruined my mental health. Not just the moves, other uncertainties and other um, dynamic
Yeah.
situations that the
Yeah.
military puts you in, kind of um, with an expectation that you're going to adapt and you're going to change quickly. But for an autistic, it's not maybe as easy to change.
It's not cut and dry, man.
Yeah.
It's not.
So yeah,
We.
so there's the rules, there's that structure around it, but then there's all that chaos inside that
Yeah.
I had a really hard time with.
You spoke about the morning routine and
Mhm.
things, and I look at this, and what I see in my head is a script, like an actor's script, right?
Yeah.
Here's the script, and it's got to be repeated every morning, and I stick by it, or else if
Mhm.
you don't, it kind of throws you off,
It
and you're
does,
like,
and
oh
you feel like
darn,
you're that's
I
right.
I didn't have my coffee, or I'm out of cream, and I got no,
Oh, exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't take much
No,
to
it
go.
doesn't. It doesn't.
Oh no.
No, exactly.
My brain just goes into,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna melt down, but
Mhm.
it just.
And I don't think neurotypical people or non-autistics even really quite understand that.
No.
It's a real challenge, and I've had people throughout my life say like, well, just get over, it, just like, you know, you can't. It's really hard. It's a real challenge, and
It's not. Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, things like that became a challenge for me in the forces, and
So
but overall,
yeah.
I've had a happy 22-year career
Well,
and
I'm glad to hear that.
met great people.
Sorry, buddy, but
did,
I love you.
did a lot of great things, and
Now-
so no regrets at all.
Well,
over
that's
my
the good
service.
thing.
Yeah.
After you've been, that you discovered this, what changes did you do with work and your home life and all that to help you sort of chug along at a better pace and be yourself? Like, what were your steps?
Well, I think I had to figure it out. Really,
Mhm.
it took me a really long time to just figure out what it meant, what it meant to be autistic, and then almost what I liked or didn't like.
Identifying triggers, maybe?
Yeah, that too. Because I had been spending most of my life doing things that seemed like what I should be doing or what other people were doing, or going out to places, going out to parties, doing all these
Mhm.
things, and then after I realized I now had almost an excuse, a reason not to do this, and not to have to keep forcing myself. Part of the unmasking was saying, no, I'm just going to stay at home by myself because that's what I like to do. I'm,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and really kind of get into my special interests and say like these are my special interests. I'm going to spend a lot of time doing them, and just kind of just some of that, and just
Mhm.
becoming or just more doing what I want, and just being happier, within
That's
myself.
really
So,
good. So you made the necessary changes
Mhm.
within your life and your environment around
Yeah.
you too. Now, when it came, no, it's okay, buddy. It's okay. When come here, come on up. When you spoke to, let's say, your superior at
Mhm.
work, I
Yeah.
guess you would have had to have. Listen, this is what, like, how did that?
Well,
Oh, buddy.
um, I made minimal changes at work, other than I told more and more coworkers and supervisors, and I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I really needed supervisors
Okay.
or managers support to
Yeah.
manage any of the conditions. But I let my immediate subordinates know because I've always been quite awkward in meetings. I've had challenges sometimes with being I guess absent-minded or
Oh, it's okay.
disorganized, and
Yeah.
I had a reason. So I told my coworkers, I have these different challenges sometimes, and I know that I have them, and so it made things a
Yeah.
little easier. But
Yeah.
as far as actual supports from work, I didn't need them.
That's good. That's good.
Nobody ever questioned why I was wearing your defenders over at work.
Yeah.
Or nobody bothered me actually whatsoever. I just would hang out in my office and listen to music or whatever, and people seem to accept that. But
That's good.
it's partly because I think I told them that I'm autistic, and these
Nice.
are some of the things that I need.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, it worked
What's
quite well, and people were super accepting.
That's
So,
good that you
no issues there.
the transition was good at work. It
Yeah,
wasn't
it was. Yeah.
anything, and
Mhm.
that's really good. Now, what about we all have stims, right? Things that we do. Like me, for instance, I rock all the time and listen to music. Like, what's yours, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, yeah, rocking would be one of them.
It seems to be
If I
the
get nervous.
very big one
Yeah,
for
I
all
like
the
to rock.
autistic
Or if
people.
I'm standing, I'll sway back and forth.
Okay, okay.
I have a lot of face stuff. I go, touch my face. I'll rub my head actually if I get stressed or nervous.
Yeah.
I'll rub my head around.
Like right now.
But or hand stuff. But yeah.
But what about your music?
Well, of course.
That's a
I have
stim,
music.
right?
Of course. Yeah.
You're a
I have all that.
musician too.
Mhm,
What
that's
do
right.
what do you play?
Well, I played guitar originally when I was very young, 12 years old or so, until about 19, 20. And then I put it down, and then one day I went down the basement during the pandemic, and my acoustic was down there. I brought it up, and I drove my wife absolutely insane for
Yeah.
probably a couple of years, so I figured out how to play it again. And
That's cool.
From there, I picked up probably the harmonica next, and
Yep.
I had started singing with the guitar then. My wife bought me a drum kit because I'd always said I want to play drums, and my stepdaughter said, you have to buy him a drum kit. So
Yeah.
so my wife bought me this drum kit, and I looked at it and I thought, oh man, now I have to learn how to play drums, and I didn't think I could because I had so much trouble with rhythm on the guitar. I've always had issues with rhythm,
Okay.
and I thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to figure out how to play these things, but oh man, I'm going to have to learn because she bought them for me, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Well, so yeah, so now I'm a drummer, and I play guitar mostly, those two.
That's
What
pretty
else? A
cool.
bit of piano and stuff. But yeah, I played a few shows with a band that I was in, and had a really good time
Mhm.
behind the kit on stage. But I really just like playing in the basement. My title on Instagram is basement drummer.
That's pretty cool
And,
though.
so yeah, I just really like to play along with the
Yeah.
backtracks and record
the
myself.
backing
and-
tracks, and it's a
Yeah,
stress
so-
relief too, right?
Oh, for sure,
Because,
it's really cathartic for me.
I'm a drummer
yeah.
too, right? And
Mhm.
I get to, when I'm behind the kit, I'm so hyper focused on what I'm
Yeah.
doing. It's like nothing else exists,
Gosh,
right? And it's just, I just immerse myself right into it.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you feel the same way. You're just right
Well,
there. And
mhm. It's the best thing for anxiety because when you're
Yeah.
doing something else, you can't be anxious when you're
Yeah.
concentrating on something
Exactly.
else. So you forget about it, and so it's really therapeutic for me and great exercise. And I find it's very different. The guitar is a certain kind of therapy for me, and then the
Yeah.
drums are a different one.
Yeah,
The drums
yeah,
are
yeah.
kind of the big motion, and then the guitar's kind of the more
finer.
something.
Yeah.
It's different. So I tend to kind of balance between those two instruments.
That's
I
pretty
really-
good though.
yeah.
That's pretty. See, I'll play the drums. I'll play one string songs on the guitar and one string songs on the bass. The kazoo maybe.
Yeah,
But that's about it. Bit of keyboard, but Hello. She's autistic on the other end of the spectrum.
For sure.
So, if you, first off, I want to say thank you for your service.
Very welcome.
It's not easy to do what you do, and especially with what you live with. And Brembo, no. Closing it off, if you had advice for someone who's our age and who's struggling with thinking maybe they are, what would you say to that person?
Really, well, I've advised a few people just find an online test and just do an online test. They're quite accurate. I think there's a Cambridge test, and so I've directed different family members and whatnot to do it. And from there you kind of go from there. If you score below 30 or whatever, you're very likely not on the spectrum, and maybe you're another divergence, or there's a lot of things that are similar to autism, right? There's a lot of different neurodivergences. Autism very specifically has these core characteristics of the social challenges and communication challenges and whatnot, and the restrictive repetitive interests, and very very focused. But there's a lot of neurodivergences that are similar. So I always say do an online test and then go from there and do some research. And I don't think a medical assessment is really necessary.
Hmm.
I think self-suspecting autistics are just as valid. Well, I
I
am.
believe so.
People sometimes say self-diagnosed. I say self-suspecting.
Yeah.
Um, but again, like I said, I know who I am,
Yeah.
so I would just say, really to anybody everywhere, just be yourself, and just unmask whatever that means.
Yeah.
I think the world is better if we all are just comfortable in ourselves, and we don't all try to conform to this societal norm. And so, yeah, people at work, I always encourage them to just be themselves.
That's
And
the
I
best
think,
way to do
in terms
things.
of
Yeah.
autism, for any self-suspecting
Yeah.
autistics, I would say just embrace it and just be yourself, right? And if you need to
100%.
stim, and just stim, and the world's becoming more accepting. I have a little, a sunflower here, invisible
Okay.
disability sunflower, plus a music note,
Yeah.
because I like music.
And what does the sunflower represent?
Represents invisible disabilities.
Okay.
And a lot of people associate with autism specifically, but
Okay.
it's just in general.
See, I didn't
Really.
know that myself. There you
Oh,
go.
so-
I was just learned it.
Oh, well, then I'll give you a little briefing on it. You'll see that in the Ottawa airport now, they'll have a sunflower.
Oh.
And so if you come through with lanyard or sunflower through the airport, they recognize that you may be challenged without, without showing it, right? Like
That's
invisible
it.
disability, whether it's
Wow.
depression, anxiety,
Yeah. Well, that's all part of
anything,
autism.
a
right?
mental illness or autism, or any range of disabilities, challenges, or likewise,
Yeah.
or in between. So yeah, it's the invisible disability.
Yeah.
So yeah, and really, I just feel like people should just be themselves.
That's
Yeah.
good advice. One question I had, I should have asked earlier, but when you came to the realization that you were autistic and you started talking to people, has anybody in your surroundings said, like, you didn't know, or they suspected, or
Oh, of course. Yeah, you have people in your life that say, "Well, yeah, I always knew that."
yeah, I had that.
How come it took you so long to figure it out, right?
Yeah,
And I actually had a therapist at one point, a few sessions in, and she said, you're autistic, right? And I was like, well, I don't know. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
so. And this was quite early in my kind of journey, and I was describing to her a lot of my issues, challenges
Yeah.
that I was having, and that's what she said. And so yeah, it seems like people sometimes can see it in you before you see it, but now I feel, I feel like I can see it in others better. I feel that
Yeah,
kind
you
of
can identify it.
affinity,
Yeah.
especially, as people kind of describe their experiences in life, I start saying, interesting.
Yeah.
Because the autistic experience is quite unique. Even though they say you've only met one, yeah, we tend to have these kind of general
Yeah, similar
Those
traits, right?
traits,
Yeah,
traits,
yeah,
yeah. The eye avoidance,
Yeah.
and different things. We're both looking at the ground during the entire interview, right?
yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's that.
That's true. Well, I want to say, thank you for doing this, because, part of this campaign is raising awareness of autism and speaking to great people like Trevor here, who, served in the military, still serving, is identified autistic. It's important that we get the stories out there so that people know what autism is. And I'm so gracious that you came here to do that. And by the way, we're gonna jam, him and I, for a few minutes. We're not gonna put that on camera because it's our stimming time. But thank you so much,
Thank you.
Trevor. I can't thank you enough for being here. And my dog is finally laying down now. He's chilled after the interview's over. But thank you for watching, people. We got some more interviews coming. Before I do this whole world record-breaking event starting January 28th, the Brass Monkey. This is what I'm doing for the next month, and 2.5 months is just riling up and raising awareness. So thank you for watching. Share this video. We've got more people being interviewed. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Talk to you later.